chosen one. What I'm about to reveal will vindicate every moment of humiliation you endured, because right now, in this very moment, the people who dragged your name through the mud publicly are watching their own names get destroyed by something far more powerful than any human attack, far more devastating than any coordinated campaign, far more thorough than any scheme they could orchestrate. The truth itself. They exposed you publicly. They made your struggles entertainment for the masses. They turned your private pain into public spectacle. They broadcast your lowest moments like breaking news. They invited audiences to witness your fall, gathered crowds to mock your collapse, created platforms for others to celebrate your defeat. They didn't just attack you in private. They didn't just harm you behind closed doors. They didn't just hurt you in ways only you would know. They made it public. They ensured everyone was watching. They guaranteed maximum visibility for your humiliation. They wanted your downfall to be witnessed by as many people as possible, documented by as many sources as available, spread through as many channels as they could access. This wasn't just cruelty. This was performance cruelty. This wasn't just attack. This was spectacle attack. This wasn't just betrayal. This was theater betrayal designed for maximum humiliation, maximum damage, maximum devastation to your reputation, your dignity, your public image. They thought they were destroying you publicly. They believed they were ending your credibility permanently. They assumed they were ruining your reputation irreversibly. They were convinced that by making your fall public, by ensuring everyone witnessed your collapse, by creating permanent documentation of your lowest moment, they were guaranteeing you could never rise again, never restore your name, never rebuild your reputation. They thought public exposure of your struggles meant permanent defeat. They believed public documentation of your pain meant eternal shame. They assumed public broadcasting of your collapse meant you were finished. But something is happening now that they never anticipated. Something is unfolding that they didn't plan for. Something is emerging that terrifies them more than anything they've ever experienced. The truth is exposing them, not just privately, where only a few would know. Not just quietly, where it could be contained. Not just subtly, where it could be managed. Publicly, loudly, undeniably. The same way they exposed you is the same way truth is exposing them. The same platforms they used to broadcast your pain are now broadcasting their own destruction. The same audiences they gathered to witness your fall are now watching their collapse. The same visibility they ensured for your humiliation is now illuminating their own shame. Tonight, you're going to understand exactly how the truth is exposing them. You're going to see the specific ways their public attack on you has become their own public undoing. You're going to witness divine justice operating in the open, cosmic correction and executing in full view. Universal law demonstrating publicly that what you do in the light comes back to you in the light. What you expose publicly gets exposed publicly. What you broadcast to the world gets broadcast back about you. This is perfect symmetry. This is precise justice. This is cosmic law manifesting so visibly, so undeniably, so publicly that no one watching can miss the lesson being taught. They exposed you publicly. Now the truth is exposing them publicly, and the exposure is more thorough, more devastating, more permanent than anything they did to you, because truth has a quality their lies never had: authenticity, persistence, undeniability. Their exposure of you was built on distortions, fabrications, exaggerations. The truth's exposure of them is built on facts, reality, documented evidence. Their attack on you required constant maintenance, continuous reinforcement, persistent effort. Truth's revelation of them requires nothing but time, nothing but patience, nothing but allowing reality to surface naturally. Let me show you how this exposure is unfolding, because understanding the mechanism will help you recognize divine justice at work even when you're not witnessing every detail directly. First, their own words are being exposed. The things they said about you publicly are now being compared to reality, to truth, to what actually happened. People who believed them initially are now questioning. People who supported their narrative are now doubting. People who spread their stories are now reconsidering. Because time reveals truth, reality contradicts lies, facts expose fiction. They said you were things you weren't. They claimed you did things you didn't. They portrayed you as someone you aren't. And for a season, for a moment, for a period, some people believed them, but belief built on lies is unstable. Trust founded on fabrications is fragile. Support based on distortions is temporary. As time passes, as people observe, as reality demonstrates who you actually are versus who they claimed you were, the contrast becomes undeniable. The lies become obvious. The distortions become apparent. The fabrications become exposed. And now their credibility is collapsing. Now their words carry no weight. Now their claims are questioned before being considered. This is the first layer of their exposure. Their dishonesty is being revealed not by your defense, but by simple comparison between their words and reality, between their claims and truth, between their narrative and facts. People are recognizing they were lied to. Audiences are realizing they were manipulated. Witnesses are understanding they were deceived. This recognition is spreading. This realization is growing. This understanding is expanding, and it's happening publicly, visibly, in the same spaces where they exposed you. The same platforms that broadcast their accusations are now hosting questions about their credibility. The same channels that spread their lies are now circulating doubts about their honesty. The same audiences that witnessed your exposure are now observing theirs. Divine justice is using their own methods against them, turning their own weapons upon them, deploying their own strategies for their own destruction. Second, their own actions are being exposed. Things they did in secret are coming to light. Behaviors they thought were hidden are being revealed. Patterns they believed were concealed are becoming visible. People are sharing stories. Victims are finding courage. Truth is emerging from multiple sources, and the picture being painted, the reality being revealed, the truth being exposed. It's devastating to their reputation, their credibility, their public image they worked so hard to maintain. They exposed you publicly, hoping to destroy your reputation. Their own actions are now being exposed publicly, actually destroying their reputation. The difference is crucial. Your exposure was manufactured. Their exposure is organic. Your humiliation was orchestrated. Their shame is natural consequence. Your public fall was staged by enemies. Their public collapse is produced by truth. You were attacked. They are being revealed. You were targeted by malice. They are being unveiled by reality. And the details emerging, the facts surfacing, the truth being revealed about their character, their behavior, their real nature beneath their masks, it's shocking people who thought they knew them, disturbing those who trusted them, horrifying those who believed their public image. Because the person they presented publicly is so different from the person they are privately that the contrast is jarring. The contradiction is disturbing, the deception is profound. They maintained a facade. They projected an image. They performed a character. But facades crack under pressure. Images fade when reality intrudes. Performances end when truth takes the stage. And their performance is ending now. Their facade is cracking now. Their image is fading now. Not because you're attacking them, but because truth doesn't need to attack. Truth simply emerges. Reality simply surfaces. Facts simply reveal themselves given enough time, enough attention, enough examination. Third, their own allies are exposing them. The very people they gathered to attack you publicly are now the ones revealing their truth. Some are doing it intentionally, finally finding courage to speak about what they witnessed, what they experienced, what they know about the real person beneath the public persona. Others are doing it unintentionally through their own behavior, their own contradictions, their own inability to maintain the lies they were recruited to spread. The network they built to attack you is fracturing. The alliance they formed to expose you is fragmenting. The coalition they assembled to destroy your reputation is turning on itself. Why? Because organizations built on lies are inherently unstable. Alliances formed through deception are fundamentally fragile. Networks created for malicious purposes eventually collapse under their own toxicity. They're experiencing betrayal from people they thought were loyal. They're watching allies become adversaries. They're seeing supporters transform into exposers. And the information coming from these former allies, these previous supporters, these ex-conspirators, it's damaging because it comes from insiders, from people who were there, from witnesses who participated in the plotting, the scheming, the coordinated attack against you. These revelations are particularly devastating because they can't be dismissed as lies from enemies. These are truths from former friends. These are facts from previous allies. These are realities exposed by people who were once part of their inner circle. The very network they use to attack you publicly is now the source of their own public exposure. Divine justice is turning their own weapons against them, converting their own allies into their accusers, transforming their own support system into the mechanism of their revelation. Fourth, documentation is exposing them. Screenshots they didn't know existed, recordings they didn't know were made, messages they thought were private, evidence they believed was destroyed. It's all surfacing now, coming to light now, being revealed now. In the digital age, nothing truly disappears. In the era of documentation, nothing remains permanently hidden. In the time of receipts, lies eventually face proof. They said things in writing they now wish they hadn't. They documented their plotting in ways they now regret. They left evidence of their coordination they now desperately want to erase. But digital footprints are nearly impossible to completely remove. Electronic evidence persists even after deletion. Documentary proof remains even after attempts to destroy it. And now that evidence is emerging. Now that documentation is surfacing. Now those receipts are being presented publicly. The same public spaces where they exposed you are now displaying evidence of their deception, proof of their lies, documentation of their real character. People are seeing the screenshots. Audiences are reading the messages. Witnesses are examining the evidence. And the contrast between their public persona and their private reality, between their projected image and their documented behavior, between their performed character and their actual nature. It's so stark, so obvious, so undeniable that defense becomes impossible. Denial becomes useless. Explanation becomes futile. They exposed you with lies. They're being exposed with evidence. They attacked you with fabrications. They're being revealed with documentation. They destroyed your reputation with fiction. Their reputation is being destroyed with facts. This is the power of truth. This is the nature of reality. This is the function of divine justice operating through evidence, through documentation, through undeniable proof that speaks louder than any defense, more clearly than any explanation, more powerfully than any attempt at justification. Fifth, consequences are exposing them. The results of their actions, the outcomes of their choices, the manifestations of their behavior in their own lives, it's all becoming visible. They're losing things publicly. Opportunities evaporating in full view. Relationships ending where everyone can see. Reputation crumbling in real time. Career imploding before witnesses. The consequences they're experiencing are not private. They're not hidden. They're not subtle. They're public, visible, obvious. People are watching them fall the way they watched you fall. Audiences are witnessing their collapse the way they witnessed yours. Observers are seeing their destruction the way they saw yours. But there's a crucial difference. You fell because you were attacked. They're falling because they're being exposed. You were pushed. They're collapsing under the weight of their own actions. You were targeted by enemies. They're being revealed by truth, and the public nature of their consequences is teaching everyone watching a lesson they need to learn. What you do in public comes back to you in public. What you expose publicly gets exposed publicly about you. What you broadcast to audiences gets broadcast back. This is cosmic law. This is universal justice. This is divine correction operating so visibly that the lesson cannot be missed, the teaching cannot be ignored, the demonstration cannot be dismissed. Their consequences are becoming their testimony. Their losses are becoming their sermon. Their collapse is becoming their message. And that message is clear. You cannot publicly destroy someone under divine protection without being publicly destroyed yourself. You cannot broadcast someone's fall without having your own fall broadcast. You cannot make someone's pain public entertainment without having your own pain become public spectacle. Let's talk about the psychological impact of being exposed publicly, because understanding what they're experiencing will help you recognize the precision of divine justice. Public exposure creates a unique form of suffering. It's not just the loss itself, but the witnessed loss. It's not just the shame, but the public shame. It's not just the fall, but the visible fall. They're experiencing what they inflicted on you. The horror of having your worst moments displayed for everyone to see. The agony of having your failures broadcast to audiences. The torture of having your collapse documented for permanent record. But their suffering is intensified by awareness of symmetry. They know why this is happening. They recognize the pattern. They understand the connection between their public exposure of you and their own public exposure. This knowledge amplifies their torment because they can't claim ignorance, can't plead innocence, can't deny responsibility. They did this, they chose this, they initiated this pattern of public exposure. And now that pattern is completing its cycle with them as the target, them as the exposed, them as the publicly humiliated. They're experiencing paranoia about who knows what. Every conversation feels like potential exposure. Every meeting seems like possible revelation. Every interaction appears to be an opportunity for their truth to surface. This constant vigilance, this perpetual fear, this unending anxiety about what might be revealed next, who might speak up next, what evidence might surface next. It's exhausting them, draining them, consuming their mental and emotional energy. They're also experiencing the isolation of exposure. People are distancing themselves. Support is evaporating. Allies are disappearing. Because no one wants to be associated with someone being publicly exposed. No one wants their reputation tainted by proximity to scandal. No one wants to be connected to someone whose truth is being revealed in ways that shock and disturb observers. This isolation mirrors what they tried to create around you, but it's organic rather than orchestrated, natural rather than manufactured, real rather than fabricated. They're watching their public image crumble in real time. The person people thought they were is being contrasted with the person they actually are. The character they projected is being compared to their real character. The reputation they built is being demolished by reality, and they're powerless to stop it. They can issue denials, but documentation contradicts them. They can create explanations, but evidence exposes them. They can attempt defense, but facts defeat them. This powerlessness is particularly devastating because they're used to control. They controlled the narrative when they exposed you. They managed the information when they attacked you. They directed the story when they humiliated you publicly. But now control is gone. Narrative management is impossible. Story direction is out of their hands. Truth doesn't need their permission to surface. Reality doesn't require their approval to emerge. Facts don't wait for their consent to be revealed. Let's examine the spiritual mechanics of public exposure as divine justice, because this is where the profound wisdom of cosmic correction becomes apparent. When they exposed you publicly, they created a template. They established a pattern. They set a precedent in the spiritual realm. They declared through their actions that public exposure is an acceptable form of attack, that public humiliation is a valid weapon, that broadcasting someone's pain is justifiable behavior. The universe took note. Divine justice recorded the precedent. Cosmic law documented the pattern, and now that same template is being applied to them. That same pattern is being executed with them as the target. That same precedent is being used for their exposure. This is how spiritual law works. You teach the universe how you want to be treated through how you treat others. You demonstrate to cosmic forces what methods you consider acceptable through what methods you employ against others. You show divine justice what you believe is fair through what you do to others. They showed the universe that public exposure is acceptable. The universe is now exposing them publicly. They demonstrated that broadcasting someone's pain is justified. Their own pain is now being broadcast. They established that making someone's fall visible is appropriate. Their own fall is now visible to all. They set the rules. They defined the methods. They established the standards. And now those same rules, methods, standards are being applied to them with perfect precision, complete fairness, absolute justice. This is why you don't need to defend yourself publicly. This is why you don't need to attack them in return. This is why you don't need to orchestrate their exposure. The universe is doing it. Divine justice is handling it. Cosmic law is executing it using the template they themselves created, the pattern they themselves established, the precedent they themselves set. They taught the universe how to expose them through how they exposed you. They gave divine justice the blueprint for their own public destruction through their public attack on you. There's profound wisdom in this approach. God isn't using a different method than they used. Divine justice isn't employing a separate strategy than they deployed. Cosmic correction isn't applying different standards than they established. The universe is simply turning their own methods back on them, using their own weapons against them, applying their own standards to their own behavior. This is elegant justice. This is perfect correction. This is divine pedagogy at its most effective. Now let's talk about the role of witnesses in public exposure, because this is crucial to understanding the full scope of what's happening to them. When they exposed you publicly, they required witnesses, they needed audiences, they demanded observers. Public exposure only works if there are people watching, people listening, people believing. They gathered those witnesses, they assembled those audiences, they collected those observers. And they used them to attack you, to humiliate you, to destroy your reputation. But witnesses serve a dual purpose in divine justice. The same people who witnessed your exposure are now witnessing theirs. The same audiences who observed your fall are now observing their collapse. The same observers who saw your humiliation are now seeing their truth revealed. And this matters because credibility is established through consistency. When the same witnesses who saw them attack you now see them being exposed, when the same audiences who heard their accusations now hear truth contradicting those accusations, when the same observers who believed their lies now see evidence of their deception, it creates a powerful lesson that changes how people evaluate truth, judge character, assess credibility. The witnesses are learning to look deeper. The audiences are learning to question more. The observers are learning to wait for truth. Because they saw you being publicly exposed based on lies, and now they're seeing the liars being publicly exposed by truth. This contrast is educational. This comparison is instructive. This demonstration is transformative for everyone watching. They're learning that public accusations don't equal truth, that confident claims don't guarantee accuracy, that performed righteousness doesn't indicate real character. Divine justice is teaching not just the attackers, but also the witnesses. The public nature of both exposures, yours and theirs, creates an opportunity for collective learning, for community education, for social transformation. People are understanding that believing accusations without evidence is dangerous. that supporting attacks without knowing full truth is risky, that joining mobs without discernment is foolish. The same witnesses who participated in your exposure through their belief, their support, their sharing of false narratives. Many of them are now experiencing their own form of correction. They're feeling guilt for believing lies. They're experiencing shame for spreading falsehoods. They're carrying regret for participating in public attack on an innocent person. This secondary exposure, this revelation to witnesses of their own gullibility, their own hasty judgment, their own participation in injustice, it's part of the comprehensive nature of divine correction. God isn't just correcting the primary attackers. Divine justice isn't just exposing the main perpetrators. Cosmic law isn't just revealing the chief conspirators. The entire ecosystem that enabled your public exposure is being addressed, educated, corrected. The attackers are being exposed, the witnesses are being taught, the audience is being transformed, the observers are being educated. This is comprehensive justice, this is thorough correction, this is complete divine pedagogy. Let's examine how their exposure is progressing through stages, because understanding the process will help you recognize divine justice at work even when it seems slow. First came whispers. People started questioning privately. Doubts emerged quietly. Concerns surfaced subtly. This was the beginning of their exposure, the initial cracks in their facade, the first signs that truth was beginning to emerge. They might have noticed these whispers, felt these doubts, sensed these concerns, but they likely dismissed them, explained them away, convinced themselves it was manageable. Then came conversations. The private whispers became small group discussions. People started comparing notes, sharing experiences, recognizing patterns. This was the second stage, where isolated questions became collective concerns, where individual doubts became shared suspicions, where separate observations became recognized patterns. At this stage, they probably felt the threat more acutely. They might have attempted damage control, tried to manage narratives, worked to suppress emerging truth. Next came accusations. What was discussed in private started being stated publicly. People found courage to speak openly. Victims found strength to share their stories. Truth-tellers found platforms to present evidence. This was the stage where exposure moved from private to public, where whispers became statements, where doubts became accusations. This is probably where they are now, or rapidly approaching. This is where their public exposure truly begins, where their reputation starts crumbling visibly, where their facade breaks down obviously. Then comes documentation. Accusations are supported by evidence, stories are verified by facts, claims are proven by receipts. This stage is devastating because it removes all possibility of denial, eliminates all room for explanation, destroys all capacity for defense. When documentation surfaces, when evidence is presented, when receipts are shown, lies collapse completely, deception becomes undeniable. Truth becomes irrefutable. They're approaching this stage or already entering it. Finally comes consequences. Public exposure leads to public loss. Revealed truth results in real outcomes. Exposed deception creates actual change. Opportunities vanish, relationships end, platforms close, reputations collapse, careers implode. This final stage is where exposure transforms from information to impact, where revelation becomes consequence, where truth becomes justice. They're either in this stage now or it's approaching rapidly, depending on where they are in the exposure process. Understanding these stages helps you recognize that exposure is a process, not an event. It unfolds, it develops, it progresses. What starts as whispers ends as consequences. What begins as doubts culminates as justice. What initiates as questions concludes as correction. And throughout every stage, divine forces are orchestrating, cosmic powers are directing, universal law is executing. Nothing about their exposure is random. Everything is precise. Every stage serves a purpose. Every phase teaches a lesson. Now let's talk about the permanence of public exposure, because this is where the full weight of their actions becomes apparent. They exposed you publicly, hoping to create permanent damage to your reputation. They wanted that exposure to be lasting, that humiliation to be unforgettable, that attack to be forever associated with your name. They sought to create a permanent record of your lowest moment, an eternal documentation of your pain, a lasting archive of your fall. But digital records work both ways. Public documentation cuts in both directions. Permanent archives preserve all truth, not just the lies they wanted preserved. Now their own exposure is being documented publicly. Their own truth is being recorded permanently. Their own reality is being archived for future reference. And because truth is more stable than lies, because reality is more persistent than fiction, because facts are more durable than fabrications, the documentation of their exposure will last longer, persist more stubbornly, remain more accessible than anything they created about you. They're realizing that what they did to you publicly is now being done to them publicly, with one crucial difference. What they did was based on lies that time would erode. But what's being done to them is based on truth that time will preserve. Your public exposure was built on fabrications that eventually collapse. Their public exposure is built on facts that will endure. Your humiliation was constructed on false narratives that reality contradicts. Their shame is constructed on true stories that evidence confirms. This permanence terrifies them. They understand now that the internet never forgets, that digital records persist, that public exposure in the modern age is nearly impossible to erase completely. They wanted to create permanent damage to you. They're experiencing permanent damage to themselves. They sought to ensure lasting consequences for you. They're enduring lasting consequences themselves. They tried to establish eternal shame for you. They're facing eternal documentation of their own shame. Divine justice is teaching them that permanence is a double-edged sword. What you try to make permanent about others becomes permanent about you. What you try to establish as lasting legacy for your victims becomes lasting legacy about you. What you try to ensure remains in public memory about your targets remains in public memory about you. They wanted your exposure to be permanent. Their own exposure will be permanent. They ensured your fall would be documented. Their own fall is being documented. They made certain your pain would be public record. Their own pain is now public record. Let's examine your role in all of this, because understanding what you should do while they're being exposed is crucial for your own peace and continued elevation. Your job is not to participate in their exposure. You don't need to point out their lies. You don't need to present evidence against them. You don't need to gather witnesses to their wrongdoing. Truth is handling that. Reality is managing that. Divine justice is executing that. Your participation isn't required, your involvement isn't needed, your action isn't necessary. Your job is to keep rising while they're falling. Keep building while they're crumbling. Keep progressing while they're collapsing. Keep shining while they're being exposed. The best response to public attack isn't public counterattack. It's private growth that becomes public success. It's personal development that becomes visible achievement. It's individual transformation that becomes obvious elevation. They exposed you hoping to keep you down. Rise anyway. They humiliated you publicly hoping to destroy your confidence. Shine anyway. They broadcast your pain hoping to ensure permanent defeat. Succeed anyway. Your rising is their lesson. Your success is their correction. Your thriving is their education in what happens when you attack the protected, expose the anointed, try to destroy the chosen. Your job is also to forgive but not forget. Forgiveness means releasing them from your personal need for revenge, trusting divine justice to handle correction, choosing peace over perpetual anger. But forgetting would be foolishness. Remember what they did. Remember how they did it. Remember why they did it. This memory isn't for holding grudges, but for maintaining boundaries, not for seeking revenge, but for preventing repeat access. Not for staying bitter, but for staying wise. They exposed you publicly. They showed you who they are through their actions. Believe them. They revealed their character through their choices. Accept that revelation. They demonstrated their capacity for cruelty through their behavior. Don't deny that demonstration. Forgive them for your peace. Remember them for your protection. Release them from your anger. Keep them at a distance for your safety. Your job is to let your vindication be public without making it performative. Your success speaks. Your character demonstrates. Your life testifies. You don't need to announce your vindication. Your elevation announces it. You don't need to declare your innocence. Your continued blessing declares it. You don't need to prove them wrong. Your thriving proves it. The truth exposing them is your vindication. Their public collapse is your public clearing. Their revealed lies are your demonstrated truth. Walk in quiet confidence knowing truth is emerging. Rest in peaceful assurance that justice is executing. Move in calm certainty that exposure is happening. You don't need to orchestrate any of it. You don't need to participate in any of it. You don't need to even watch any of it. Your job is simply to live well, love deeply, build faithfully, grow consistently, shine brightly. Their exposure will take care of itself because truth has its own momentum, reality has its own power, facts have their own force. Let's talk about the ultimate lesson their exposure is teaching everyone watching. Because this public demonstration serves a purpose beyond just their correction. It's teaching the larger community that divine justice is real, that cosmic law functions precisely, that universal balance cannot be permanently disrupted. Everyone who witnessed your exposure and now witnesses theirs is learning that you cannot escape consequences of your actions, that truth eventually emerges regardless of lies, that reality ultimately surfaces despite deception. This lesson needed to be public because the attack was public. Private correction would have been insufficient for public sin. Hidden consequences would have been inadequate for visible cruelty. Secret exposure would have been incomplete for open assault. Divine justice ensured their correction was as public as their crime because the lesson needed to reach everyone who witnessed their attack, everyone who believed their lies, everyone who participated in your exposure through their belief, their support, their sharing of false narratives. The public nature of their exposure serves as warning to others who might consider similar attacks. It demonstrates to potential attackers that touching the anointed carries public consequences, that exposing the protected results in your own exposure, that attacking the chosen guarantees your own revelation. This deterrent effect is part of divine wisdom, cosmic intelligence ensuring that lessons learned from one situation prevent similar situations from occurring with others. Their exposure is also teaching about the patience of divine justice. Consequences didn't arrive immediately. Exposure didn't happen instantly. Correction didn't execute overnight. There was a gap between their attack and their exposure, between your humiliation and their revelation, between their sin and their consequences. This gap serves a purpose. It teaches that divine timing is different from human timing, that cosmic justice operates on its own schedule, that universal law executes when the lesson will have maximum impact, not when humans demand it. Some people who witnessed your exposure and didn't see immediate consequences for your attackers concluded that divine justice doesn't exist, that cosmic law doesn't function, that bad people get away with bad behavior. But now, those same people are witnessing the attacker's exposure, seeing divine justice execute, observing cosmic law function. They're learning that absence of immediate consequences doesn't equal absence of coming consequences, that delay in justice doesn't mean denial of justice, that patience in divine timing doesn't indicate abandonment of divine protection. Finally, let's address what comes after their exposure, because understanding the full arc of divine justice will give you complete peace about this entire situation. After exposure comes decision. They will choose either humility or deeper denial. Either they'll acknowledge truth about themselves and genuinely transform, or they'll sink deeper into deception and continue their pattern of behavior with other targets. This choice is theirs. Their transformation or continued destruction depends on their response to exposure. If they choose humility, if they genuinely acknowledge what they did, if they authentically transform through this experience, then their exposure becomes the beginning of their redemption. Their public fall becomes the catalyst for genuine change. Their revelation becomes the foundation for real transformation. This path is available to them. Divine justice isn't just about punishment, but about correction. Not just about exposure, but about opportunity for genuine change. But if they choose continued denial, if they double down on their lies, if they refuse to acknowledge truth even when confronted with undeniable evidence, then their exposure is just the beginning of deeper consequences, more severe correction, intensifying revelation. Divine justice will increase pressure until they break or transform. Cosmic law will amplify consequences until they surrender or change. Universal forces will intensify exposure until they acknowledge truth or completely destroy themselves through continued resistance to reality. Either way, your peace isn't dependent on their choice. Your vindication isn't contingent on their transformation. Your success isn't waiting for their acknowledgement. You're free regardless of what they choose. Vindicated independent of their response, clear irrespective of their decision. The truth exposing them has already vindicated you. Their public collapse has already cleared your name. Their revealed lies have already demonstrated your innocence. They exposed you publicly, hoping to destroy you permanently. The truth is exposing them publicly, demonstrating divine justice conclusively. You're rising while they're falling. You're being elevated while they're being revealed. You're experiencing vindication while they're experiencing exposure. This is how divine justice works. This is how cosmic law functions. This is how universal balance restores itself. They exposed you publicly. Now the truth is exposing them publicly. And everyone watching is learning that you cannot escape divine justice, that public sin demands public correction, that visible cruelty requires visible consequences, that exposing the protected guarantees your own exposure. Your name is being cleared by their exposure. Your reputation is being restored by their revelation. Your character is being vindicated by their truth. Walk forward in peace, chosen one, knowing the universe has your back, that divine justice fights for you, that truth works on your behalf. They tried to destroy you publicly. Truth is destroying them publicly. They attempted to expose you permanently. Reality is exposing them completely. They worked to humiliate you visibly. Divine justice is correcting them obviously. This is your vindication. This is your clearing. This is your justice being served in full view of everyone who needs to see that touching the anointed carries consequences, that exposing the protected results in your own exposure, that attacking the chosen guarantees. Divine justice will expose everything you tried to hide, reveal everything you wanted to keep secret, broadcast everything you hoped would stay private. They exposed you publicly. Now the truth is exposing them publicly. And that truth will set you free while binding them to consequences they can no longer avoid, escape, or deny. This is divine justice. This is cosmic correction. This is the universe maintaining balance through public exposure of those who publicly exposed the innocent, permanently revealing those who sought to permanently damage the chosen, completely destroying the reputation of those who tried to completely destroy yours. Your vindication is complete. Their exposure is comprehensive. Divine justice is perfect, and everyone watching is learning why you never ever publicly expose someone under divine protection. Because truth will publicly expose you in ways you never anticipated, cannot control, and will never escape.